Hello, hello, my fellow creatives, and welcome to my channel. I am Imani the writer, and today I look amazing. Do you guys like my hair? Do you like my hair? I've never had a style like this before with my locks, which is kind of just like, I'm just kicking myself because I'm just like, how did I not think of this? Because I do like twists and twist outs all the time, but I've never done something like this in which, basically, if you're interested to know what I did, I had them all in twists like these. But I just kind of like within like a couple of days of having it, I was just like over it. I'm just like, I'm bored with this. I don't like it. So I started unraveling them, but I started in the back. And then I just kind of went to like the bathroom and looked in the mirror and saw the way it looked with them in the back being undone and how like the whole thing looks. I'm just like, oh, it reminds me of like when the girls would do things like we do those styles. I'm gonna put them up on the screen so that you know I can't the words are escaping me at the moment. When they would do those twists or those braids and add hair, it looks like that. And I was just like, oh, that's so cool that I can do something similar to that style just with my hair, with my locks. So I'm loving it. I'm feeling it. Sometimes I just love when I discover a new thing with my locks. New to me anyway, when I just learn a new thing that I can do with my locks, it's always so much fun and so exciting. And I like it. I feel like I look cute today, so yay. So today we're talking about interracial romance. I've talked about interracial romance before on my TikTok account, but I'm super excited to actually talk about it here on YouTube and have the opportunity to do it in like a long form video, because I always feel like I want to say more, but I can't because it's a TikTok, you know what I'm saying? But now I can have the opportunity to just make like a full video on interracial romance in general and just talk about all those things. So I'm bringing back a lot of the things I mentioned in my TikToks before, but also mentioning a few other things that I haven't gotten the chance to mention on TikTok before. So I'm super excited to get started and have this conversation. I have so many thoughts. I'm so ready to share them with you guys. So let's get into it. But before we do, I want to talk quickly about like the structure for this video. Essentially, I'm going to break down a few issues that I have seen before in when it comes to interracial romance, both in stories and in real life, as well as more like nonfiction media, like reality TV, things like that, that I felt that it would be a good thing to mention as well. So we'll break down what the issue is, why it's an issue, and how to approach it in storytelling. And I'll also, because it's a topic that I have some feelings about, so I'll also share some of my personal opinions on how to approach some of these things in real life interracial relationships, because I have some feelings, I have some opinions. Quick disclaimer though, in case you guys didn't know this about me, I do not have any issue or any problems with interracial romance, both in stories or in real life. I had the pleasure of enjoying them both in stories and in real life. But I do think there are some really important conversations that we need to have about the topic. And I'm excited to share them, share my thoughts with you guys, and start a conversation in the comments below. Ignore the fact that maybe possibly several times throughout this video I might take off and put back on the same cardigan. My AC is not like the kind of digital AC where you can exactly set the right temperature. It's like an analog stick looking thing. So I struggle to get the right temperature. It's always either too hot or too cold. So I'll probably take off and put back on the same cardigan over and over and over again. Don't pay it no mind. So let's talk about them. I kind of gave my own names for each of these individual issues and problems, and the first one I call who's the prize. So when it comes to interracial romance, there is a specific kind or a specific type of interracial romance or a specific type of interracial pairing that, in my opinion, is represented more often over others. Could be wrong though. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts about it. But there's a certain type that's represented more, that you see more often compared to others. And I find that specifically it's pairings and relationships that involve white people. Like one of them has to be white for some reason. So there's nothing like inherently wrong with white people being in interracial relationships. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are so many different kinds of interracial pairings that you could find and that you can see just out in the world. I think that there is a very specific reason why most of the interracial representation that we see in the media, though, is with white people. I think there's a reason for that. I'm giving it the side eye a little bit. Again, there's nothing wrong with it, but I personally feel that there's a reason why it's represented over others. Now, if that's your story, you don't necessarily have to go in and change that. I don't think it's a problem. But before I get into the whole who's the prize conversation, I did want to kind of preface that and talk a little bit about this particular phenomenon, because interracial pairings of color matter. Like interracial relationships between two different people of color, they exist and they matter just as much. And I find it very odd and strange that they're not represented nearly as often. For interracial love, in my personal opinion, to always have this constant focus on whiteness, it sends off a certain message that it only really matters, it's only really valuable, it's only worth telling in a story or being shown on screen if a white person is involved. That's the only way that interracial love is interesting. And I don't like that. I reject that very much. I would argue that interracial love between two people of color from different races and different cultural backgrounds provides a much more interesting opportunity for cultural exchange and for that to be a part of a love story, to showcase something different, to show two people who come from very colorful, vibrant worlds but very different worlds, to kind of show the ways in which they're different in two completely very different ways of life, and to explore that together. We'll talk about that later on in the video. I digress. The point I'm trying to make is that we need more stories like this. So if this is something that you're working on in your own story, comment down below. If you got some great book recommendations, comment them down below. We love to see it. We love to hear it. And again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with white people being in interracial relationships. And there's nothing wrong with white people being in interracial pairings in stories. But let's talk about an issue that tends to come out of that, and the whole idea of who's the prize. Another thing that I think is a bit overrepresented is just the idea that the darker skinned person is the one passionately in pursuit of the lighter skinned one or the white one, which can send a harmful message that whiteness is inherently superior and more attractive, that darker skinned people should strive to be with light or white skinned people, and that dark skinned people should be lucky to even catch the eye, to even get attention from white people or lighter skinned people. And I think that's something that we need to avoid perpetuating in our storytelling. Interracial love should not be used either consciously or subconsciously as a method or a means to put whiteness on a pedestal while simultaneously degrading people of color, especially dark-skinned people of color. One easy way to address this is to showcase equal attraction and pursuit, where both parties are equally interested and invested in each other. That can help break down the problematic notion that people of color are always chasing after white partners. And I guess, I'm hesitating to say this honestly, but I guess you can always just switch it by having the white or lighter skinned person pursue the dark skinned one. But the reason why I'm hesitating as much as I am is that execution is going to be really, really important. The way you go about it is going to be really, really important. Which leads to my next point and the next problem that we're going to tackle when it comes to interracial romance. We got fetishization, objectification, and experimentation. A lot of shuns going on. Let's talk about it. Fetishization occurs when one partner is overly fixated on the other's race or ethnicity, viewing it as an exotic or desirable trait rather than appreciating the person as a whole. So this can be subtly included into the story where the character's attraction to another character is based primarily in their race and their phenotype and specific features that they have, like just obsessing over certain physical features that they attribute to their race. And you might also find that the character might subtly base a lot of their attraction or a lot of their ogling or just uncomfortable sexual attention onto the other character based on some really, really big assumptions and stereotypes of who they are and how they operate based on their own assumptions of the race that they belong to. This can be subtle, but it can also just be straight up in your face. Like, I've seen it just in your face. Just crossing all sorts of lines, all sorts of boundaries, and just being seriously disrespectful. Now, objectification involves reducing a person to an object that serves to give you pleasure or some other kind of benefit. In interracial romance, it could manifest as one partner being portrayed as the trophy or as a means to showcase another person's ability to appreciate diversity. Look, I'm so woke because I have a black husband or wife or whatever. But it can also be really rude and terrible and cruel and demented. It can look like one character treating a person of color in a really gross, demeaning way for sexual gratification, and then treating them as though that is their role, that is their purpose in life, that is all they're here for, is to give them that sexual gratification. Now, experimentation is really interesting. I feel like I've experienced both of like fetishization and objectification, not only in stories, but witnessed it happening in real life. But experimentation is one that I've seen happen a lot in real life. As well as just like reality TV or things that other people of color, especially women of color, have mentioned in the past. So experimentation involves treating whatever relationship that you have with a person of color as if it's like a phase or a trial, driven more by curiosity and the desire to try something new than any genuine interest that you have in that person. One character might treat their relationship with, like, for example, the character of color as just a thing to try out to satisfy a whim or like a passing interest of some kind. It's like,
oh my god, what would my rich white family and white society think if I become so bad? I'm a black person, I'm so bad, I'm so different.
Or this one.
I've never dated a black girl before. I heard you're amazing in bed.
Like, it's just that gross, We are people, okay? People of color are people. We don't exist for white people to experiment with like some psychedelic drug. That is not what we're here for. Really, that's the core issue of these three things that I mentioned: fetishization, objectification, and experimentation. They strip us of our humanity, reducing us to whatever it is that white people want us to serve a purpose in their lives for, in their romantic lives for. Let's talk about how to avoid this. The key is by ensuring that the connection that the characters have with one another is built with like a solid foundation of the things that matter, you know, mutual respect, shared values, shared interests, emotional depth. Highlight their personalities, highlight their interests, highlight the nuances and their connection, instead of focusing excessively on their racial differences. And avoid reducing your characters to essentially props to lend itself to the exotic appeal of your story, because that's crazy. That's ew. Develop your two main characters with depth and complexity and goals and aspirations, motivations, arcs, and things that are independent of their connection and their relationship with each other, and show that they're committed to understanding each other and valuing each other beyond just surface level attraction. Okay, let's talk about the next issue that I call running to whiteness. In a lot of ways, this is related to the first issue about who's the prize. And that's kind of a prelude to the whole running to whiteness situation. It's essentially where we have a person of color chasing after a white person, not because of necessarily out of care for that person, although they might genuinely do care for that person. A lot of it has to do with chasing after whiteness itself. We might see people of color pursuing white partners out of self-hate and self-deprecation. And one of the biggest signs of this is when that character or that person of color in that pairing speaks about their community in a really disrespectful way, like just lacking respect for their own community. Now, there are a few different reasons why we find this phenomenon happening, where a person of color might be running to whiteness itself. Both, we've seen it in stories, but I've seen it happen in real life a lot. So I can break down a few different reasons why that may be. It could be in search of status. It could be in search of a certain kind of validation. Maybe they value validation from white people for a particular reason. It could be in search of true love or acceptance because they have some sort of ideology or reason to believe that that love and acceptance is just not something they can find in their own community. Or maybe even operate with an attitude that no one in their community is actually good enough. Sometimes they do this out of internalized racism and everything they've been told in their past that reinforces this idea that people of color are wrong, that being dark is wrong. Some of them literally want to lighten or whiten their legacy, meaning they actually try to make sure that their children are not dark skinned, that by getting with a light skinned person or a white person. And that's heavy. There's a lot of reasons beyond that. There's a lot that goes into just how much internalized racism someone would have to endure to think that way, you know what I'm saying? But it is real. It's out there. Some do it for status. Like, for example, we see in the media lots of rappers, athletes celebrated by their peers for having a white baddie on their arm. Some actually do it for the networking connections that their white privileged partner may have for them and the opportunities that might open up for them. But for the ones that are in search for validation, true love, or acceptance, they might feel a lack of belonging in their own community. And they might feel that way because of the various instances in their childhood or growing up where they felt rejected by their own communities. Oh, this is just my personal experience, just as a Black woman, just sharing my personal experience. There may be some challenges that come with dating within your own race. If you feel that you're often rejected by your own race, I totally get that. But interracial dating does come with its own set of challenges. Like I said, there's fetishization, objectification, experimentation. These are not things that are just in stories. These are things that are happening in real life. Some of these can include societal prejudices and family dynamics, internal struggles, especially when it comes to kind of like unlearning some of the ideologies that were instilled in you from a young age about interracial dating, if some ideologies were imprinted upon you about that. I don't think one route is necessarily across the board better than the other. I don't think one particular set of challenges is easier to navigate than the other. I think it just depends on the person at the end of the day. And that's why my approach is to kind of just be open to everyone and just kind of go where I am loved and where I am treated well, and take everyone at a case-by-case basis. And for those feeling rejected by your own people, like I feel that, I definitely do, but there are other real ways, healthy, legitimate ways to overcome that challenge, to foster more community and a feeling of belonging, and to overcome those negative feelings in a way that helps you feel more confident. And I know because I've seen them. I've done them. But again, we're sidetracking. Let's bring it back to the story. To avoid the whole running to whiteness thing in your story, it's important to just make sure to focus on the concrete reasons why these two people are interested in each other. Grounding those reasons into their personalities and their values. Don't add any like weird dialogue of them talking down to their own people while chasing someone different. That's just unnecessary, and that doesn't need to be there. Portray your character as having respect for their culture as well as respect for their love interest, because they can do both and they should do both. Another serious pet peeve of mine is the way that the media shows interracial couples addressing their cultural differences. This is the thing that aggravates me the most, because the coolest thing about interracial love and interracial relationships is the way they bring together two very different people from two very different worlds and create an opportunity for cultural exchange, for exposure, and it's just like embracing and exploring each other and each other's worlds with curiosity, with respect, learning more about what went into shaping the mind and shaping the personality of this really wonderful person that you are crazy about. Like, that's just like, isn't that awesome? Like, that's awesome. That's the coolest thing about it. So when it's not handled well, it just pisses me off. It really does, because like, why are you here? Like, if you're not going to show up and be curious and open to seeing something that you've never seen before, you're gonna make fun of your partner. Judge your partner every time they do or say something that's different from what you would do or what you would say, or that you don't get because you're not, and you're gonna be negative about it literally every time. Like, why are you even here? Why are you here? It's like, literally, it's like when someone goes to Love is Blind saying that appearances matter to them in relationships and they would feel uncomfortable being in a relationship where they're not attracted. Then why are you here? Why are you here? Like, it makes no sense. And I really hate when stories show people of color putting up with that from white people. Like, what? No. You don't get to just show up and tell me everything you think is wrong with me and everything you think is wrong with the way my people choose to live our lives. You don't get to do that. That is not your place. Show up and just like whitewash our lives, whiteify our lives. No, absolutely not. And this is the thing that knocked me out. When a person of color is with someone that is racist and stays with them in an attempt to, I want to throw up, to love the racism out of the white person. I can't. Look at me getting all hot. Just thinking about it makes me upset. Honestly, it made me so upset. That is not our job. That's not our job. It's not our job. Everyone's bias is their own responsibility. Everybody's bias is their own responsibility. Interracial love can be a beautiful, wonderful thing, but everybody's got to go in with the right attitude. They do. And this is another thing that I may have forgotten to mention. Oftentimes we see it being a woman with a white man or some other man, and he's racist, and she has to check him, and their love is supposed to like. There's one book that I'm thinking of, but I cannot remember the name. If I remember, I'll put it in the video. If not, at some point I'll probably make a video breaking down that book. Anyway, who knows? But again, it's like it lends itself to that trope that we see with lots of romance books, where the woman is attempting to change a man with her love, that her love will change him and make him better. No, we don't want that. We don't want that. I want to see characters loving each other for who they are. What is the sense, though? What is the sense of picking a man that I cannot stand, that I would otherwise despise, but choosing to love him anyway, in the hopes that my love will turn him into the man I actually want? Let's tie it back to storytelling. To avoid this in your story, make sure both parties are coming in with the right attitude and approaching with curiosity. Not the same curiosity I was talking about in the whole experimentation thing, because that's just objectification and disrespectful. I'm talking about a healthy, respectful curiosity for each other, for who they are as people. I don't know about y'all, but I just think that is so cute and so romantic. Oh my gosh. Like when people like just are just like fascinated by each other and the worlds that they came from. Like, what? That's so cute. Like the look of like wonder and awe in their eyes when they see their loved one enjoying like a cultural dish that they loved growing up, or playing like a childhood game and just like seeing how happy they are and just so comfortable and so free, and how honored they feel once they are invited to participate in their love interest's world, because it is an honor. Recognize it is an honor. I just think that it's so cute and so precious, and it makes me so sad and so jealous, and just like it's because it's so aspirational, but at the same time it makes me want to throw up because it's so cute. But to wrap this up, let's make sure that their intentions are always to respect their partner and their culture. Let that show in the way that they approach their partner, the way they treat them in their dialogue, and just throughout the story itself. So that's it, folks. That's my take on interracial romance. So what about you? What about you? Do you think that there's anything that I missed? Any tropes or problems that I haven't covered? Did you have any great interracial romance stories that you want to recommend for everybody? Let me know in the comments. And as always, if you like this video, comment your thoughts down below. Subscribe if you are feeling the vibe, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye!